Microphone. Yeah, I've got this figured out, right? All right. Man, I was trying to hit go live at 3:33 exactly, and I don't think I quite managed that. We'll see. Okay. Well, and then there's a delay, of course. Out, right? Okay.
Yeah.
We live. Hope everybody's having a great week. Let me take a second to kind of get situated. It's always a little bit weird transitioning from dad mode, dad life, to streaming and remembering kind of what I wanted to talk about. But, essentially, hold on a second. This is annoying. Sorry about that. Okay. And now that we got that over with, yeah, it's always a little bit interesting to go from dad zone of life to streaming zone of life, but we'll make it through. If we have each other, we'll make it through. Give me one more. Yeah, I really need to find a way. I just don't like the glare when I've got something that's glaring at me on the screen, but it is what it is. This week was interesting. Oh, right. We're going to get to music and the soul. Let me get this. Okay, I can leave that open. I know, super annoying. Hang with me. Hang with me. Maybe I should just not talk. Maybe I should do all of this in silence. Would that make more sense? Videos. What did we talk about this week? Okay, if I click this, it'll play an ad. Sorry. Ugh. We'll figure it out. Okay. Oh, good. This'll. So, all of my videos essentially get copyright claims on them, but I'm learning to navigate it. It is what it is. I feel like I need another screen to do this. This clip from Yuval Noah Harari, Yuval, this was the one. Out of all the clips that I used, from Joe Rogan to Heiser, Harari, climbing Mount Sophia, to Paul Vanderklay, to Sean McDowell, to Chris Williamson, to Jordan Peterson and Russel Brand, it's the transhumanist that hits me with the copyright claim. So what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? And that's okay. I will probably just continue to make content the way I've been making it. My channel operates under an educational banner, and because of that, I am using content for educational purposes. And when you use other people's content for educational purposes, it seems to me that you get a little bit more leeway when it comes to the fair use policies. So we will see. I will continue to contest these things until YouTube decides to actually hit one of my. So you get a claim. You can get a content claim and not a content strike. So as soon as I get an actual strike, which means somebody claimed I used their content, I disputed it, saying, "Hey, I'm using this for educational purposes, and I've made significant alterations to the original content. I'm going to dispute this because I can use it under fair use." They could have YouTube review it, and if YouTube decides that I'm not using it under fair use, then I would get a strike. And so I think I will continue to make content the way I'm making it until things get more serious. Hopefully they don't, because I think fair use, I think we're in a zone, we're in a place of life where we just, this is how we operate. And so this is like people used to quote other people's books, and now we quote other people's YouTube videos. All right. And I've also noticed that, at least in this last podcast, that's not what I want. My voice is very, like, what is the word? I mean, I don't like the sound of my own voice. And I even hear it right now. And I think it's just allergies, to be completely honest with you. It has been rough. So I don't know if you have a tea to recommend or something like that. I know they make teas that like help your throat, but yeah, it's painful. Like, I got a really bad headache right now, and I think it's just allergies. So, all right, with that sort of meandering and sort of strange recap of at least part of the video, how's everybody doing? Let me know how you're doing. I would love to hear how you're doing, because this is a very strange topic. This is a very strange topic. I don't... So Joe and Tucker are talking, and Tucker says, humans and spiritual beings have always created hybrids. That's just been part of like human history. It's all over the place. Yeah, in our modern world, we sort of look at that and we chuckle and we think, oh, those primitive people back then, thinking that humans and spirits, cohabitated and or even that there is such a thing as spirits. We look at that from our modern context and we think this is really dumb. And yet Joe says, I don't think it's crazy, which I thought was really interesting, that Joe Rogan would just sort of hear that and be like, okay, that's fine. Tucker goes on to say, basically, we've created synthetic minds, we've created synthetic bodies, and so we go into, this is the Socrates, 3 parts of the soul. I've just constantly going back and forth with the Republic here on this podcast. Is not something I intended, but you can see this, that this is why it sparked my curiosity. If we're at least attempting to make minds, and we've essentially replaced the body with machines, and if what it means to be human is this unity of these 3 parts, which, as a Christian, I kind of look at that and go, okay, that makes sense. We are made in God's image. God is 3 in 1. People, in some way, reflect that threeness and oneness. And is it possible that the mind and the spirit and the appetites are part of the way humanity reflects that Trinity that is in God? Maybe. And even if this is like partially true and not fully true, there are some people that seem to believe it, and so they're set on recreating a human, replacing rationality with the internet, replacing the body with machines. And yet, what would we replace spirit with? I'm also realizing that I don't think I linked this in the description of the video, so I'll have to do that. So that spirit question is really one of the things. What I like to do with the live stream is essentially pick up the pieces that didn't make it into the video, because I always feel like there's more to talk about. And this spirit element is an interesting one. And particularly when it comes to music. And as I was making this video, and I worked on, I let this one cook. I let this one kind of marinate for a little while. I wasn't in a rush to push it out. Of course, there's a lot of moving parts. I mean, we've got a ton of clips that you can look at. I'm not sure why. 3747. Okay, I'll have to go back and figure out why that's broken. Oh, because it's not correct. It's not 37. It's 30. Anyway, whatever. There's a lot of moving parts there. Joe says we need a map of reality, and we don't have it. I think we do. I think it's scripture. I think it's divine revelation. Then I propose this idea that spirit is required if humanity is going to build an antichrist. That's where I wanted to let this kind of cook for a little while. Of course, there are many sort of antichrists that, sort of attempt to fulfill the role of Christ, but ultimately they're deceiving people away from the person of Christ. And what would humanity in rebellion do if we were at least got to the point where we had the power to create something that seemed divine, but is actually made in human image, right? So we've got the two pieces of who Christ is, fully God, fully man. And if humanity in rebellion to God makes a man-like God or a God-like man, there we have it. And so in the podcast, and if you haven't watched it yet, the link is in the chat. My proposal is that if anything would happen, it would be amplified humanity masquerading as divinity. I'm borrowing from Francis Schaeffer there, but I think it applies. It would be amplified humanity because the human view of God is that God is just a big person in the sky, just a bigger version of ourselves. That's why when you look at the pantheon of gods in Greek or Roman, or any of the others, it's like, okay, you've basically just taken a person, you've made the person really big or really strong or whatever. And that's the tell there, that what you're dealing with is a human version of God. Humanity has created this idea of God. And I think where Christianity is unique is that it's revealed. The person of God is revealed to us, not created by us. So God has revealed himself to us, and so that's why it's difficult. Like, it's difficult to read the Bible. It's difficult to understand who God is. It's difficult to be a Trinitarian monotheist. These are hard things. G.K. Chesterton said, maybe it was C.S. Lewis, Christianity's not been tried and found wanting, but been found difficult and left untried. And yet we can comprehend this idea of an infinite personal God, which really shouldn't be possible in a finite mind. And so that's why, if you go back to the very beginning of my channel, we started with A.W. Tozer. What comes into your mind when you think about God is the most important thing about you. It's the first video I ever posted, because it sets the groundwork for everything else that we're going to do in this podcast. Man, I will try to keep my voice from crackling and being raspy, but thanks for hanging out there. If I don't know what to do, adjust the levels here, but it has just like been pollen city where I live, and it's not getting any easier, I'll tell you that. So thanks for hanging out. If you guys are with me, let me know that you're here. Let me know what you think about this. This is a crazy idea, and one of the things that I proposed in the podcast is we need community. We need community to navigate this future. Certainly even within the context of this idea of sort of an amplified human antichrist idea, it's like the Christian response is, it's not one person who's going to figure all this out. It's a community created by the Spirit of God, which was a very interesting point that came out in recording this podcast. And sometimes I don't plan this stuff, but it was a point that I thought was really powerful, but I didn't really dive into it in the moment. If we have on the one side humanity in rebellion, creating this godlike human, amplified humanity masquerading as divinity, and there's an idea here, and I want to throw this out. There is a possibility that we as stewards of God could do this in in obedience to God. I think for the most part it's happening in disobedience to God, but so maybe there's another conversation to be had. We are trying to do essentially what the Holy Spirit is doing with the body of Christ, right? Going back to, it's gonna show up really small on the screen, but let's see, it's right there. Going back to this, mind, body, spirit. We need spirit, right? That's the idea. We've created the mind through the internet. We've created the body through industry. We need spirit. Well, what do you see happening in the church? You see the Spirit of God creating the body of Christ. So we are in rebellion, trying yet again to take the place of God, just like in Genesis 11, at the Tower of Babel. We are yet again trying to take for ourselves the role that rightly belongs to the Spirit of God. We can't. Don't do that. It's bad. But I thought that's interesting, and that's Paul Vanderklay's point. It's this collective we versus this, this machine AI race. So, Christian is in the house. What is up? Tozer is in the Protestant mystic camp. Okay, this mystic idea. This is going to come back to us because Russel Brand, I think, represents the Christian mystic, the rebirth of the Christian mystic. And it comes at the end, and I think I'm going to remake some of these clips. So one of the things that I'll do in the future, I have a note here about the future of the podcast, at least through this summer. I need to kind of dial back a little bit. And what I want to do is put out some clips of the longer form content or some shorts that would be good. And this Russel Brand, Jordan Peterson part of the conversation I thought was really good, and I tied it into this conversation about the anatomy of the Antichrist, this idea that we're building a godlike human, and this podcast movement where all these podcasters are finding Jesus. I tied the Russel Brand, Jordan Peterson conversation into the end of this for that reason, but there's more to this conversation that I would like to unpack, and that has to do with Christian mysticism. And so, to Christian's point, Tozer, sort of the Christian mystic camp, is interesting. I think Paul Vanderklay has done a little bit on this, and wondering if the word mysticism is correct. Or mystic. I think I prefer the word mystic rather than mysticism. Mysticism seems to put the emphasis on the mystery, and you end up in Gnosticism or something like you're chasing secret knowledge. Whereas a mystic can kind of appreciate the mysterious elements that exist in something, like divine revelation. It's like there's always going to be mystery there. And I don't want my Christianity to be this modern approach. I want to approach the revelation of God the way God intended me to, and so in some ways I really have to sort of like walk away from my own sort of modern Western context. Although I think Scripture certainly covers that and speaks to it and isn't irrelevant there. So there's a lot more to unpack, I think, with the Christian mystic thing. And I think that's where a lot of people sort of rebelled against this idea that Russel Brand got baptized. It's like, oh, that's not genuine or whatever. I think that's so silly. I don't know why people do that. But I think it's because he's speaking in terms of Christianity that maybe some people aren't comfortable with, because they're not comfortable with that. They're not comfortable with that mystical side of Christianity. I'm trying to find a better, clip of Russell there, and people just want the sort of the modern sort of rationalistic explanation that we're sort of comfortable with. Oh, nice. Okay, so Christian is saying he had a conversation about Schaefer and Tozer with a mutual TLC friend. I would really love to bring more Schaefer into TLC and into my own videos. I've done a bit. Some of them are older. It's really interesting. I've thought about how this podcast developed. Essentially, I set out to just engage with cultural voices from a Christian worldview, because I sensed this sort of, you can call it an awakening or whatever, but I sensed this, even with Russell a couple years ago when he was on Joe Rogan. you have this sense that is about a year ago. I did 2 videos on Joe and Russell's conversation, and gosh, I probably need to retitle these or something. Anyway, and you pick up on that people like Joe, people like Jordan, people like Russell are gonna use different language, but I'm listening to them and I'm listening to what they're saying, and I'm going, yeah, that doesn't sound like sort of Christianity, or at least sort of modern evangelical Christianity that maybe I'm familiar with, but it's not far off, and I have to appreciate that. And if Joe and at the time, Russell was not a Christian, but if Joe or Russell was going to become a Christian, my thought was it would be a sort of a mystical type of Christianity. And I feel like what developed in this podcast is really interesting. It's something I didn't intend. And that is, as I engaged with Jordan Peterson and Joe Rogan and Russel Brand, I found that somebody like Michael Heiser was like a really good dialogue partner with somebody like Joe Rogan. They just touch on very similar themes. They have similar ways of thinking. So, of course, Joe Rogan and Michael Heiser never met. Unfortunately, I think Michael Heiser would have been a great person to interview on Joe Rogan, but they never met. And so how would we sort of get Joe Rogan and Michael Heiser together to sort of have a dialogue? Well, you're there. This is it. So it's really interesting that what emerged is Joe Rogan has sort of Michael Heiser is the interlocutor there. Jordan Peterson, I think, has Francis Schaeffer as the interlocutor. Even some of their political elements are similar. And Russel Brand, I don't know exactly, but I've brought in Paul Vanderklay enough that maybe we would say that Paul Vanderklay is Russel Brand's interlocutor. I don't know if that's true. I don't know how Paul would think about that, but I don't know. Maybe Peugeot would be a good one, but I just haven't done enough on Peugeot to say one way or the other. All right, now, okay. So the 2 witnesses mentioned in the book of Revelation were able to give their message until their work was complete. Again, the dragon, the beast, and the false prophet. Okay, we might need it. Was against the dragon, etc. Okay. So you touching on the idea that 2 witnesses mentioned in the book of Revelation were able to give their message until their work was complete. So you think that has something to do with technology, how they were able to give their witness? I might need you to help me unpack that a little bit, but it's interesting. The 2 witnesses, there's so much in Revelation. I'm going to do Revelation this year. And so one of the things I want to do this summer is to sort of step back a little bit from the podcast and dedicate that time to study. Russell looks much more like the English archetypal Jesus. Okay. Well, okay, so their message was unhindered. Interesting. Yeah, how would we imagine that happens? Now, here's a thought, and this is where we need the community is, you look at Revelation. Oh man, how do we even unpack this? You look at the book of Revelation, and the question is like, okay, the one who appears, I should have it pulled up, and I don't, and that's but the Antichrist who comes, it's a little bit confusing, right? Because it's in the stars initially. Let me see. Now all my windows have just messed up. It's this Advent story, and the dragon is in the sky, and then when he's cast down, he sort of manifests as this. My question that I'm working through is where does this figure in Revelation 13 come from? That's what I'm wondering. And can we rule out that humanity in rebellion creates this figure. Again, my point in the podcast was looking at Genesis 11, and Yahweh is saying, what else might they create? Another beast coming out of the earth. Okay, so I would have to unpack, but there's so much here. But to sound like a dragon, he exercises all the authority of the first beast on the behalf of compels the earth and those who live on it and worship the first beast, whose fatal wound was healed. He also performs great signs, even causing fire to come. So this is the beast, the earth beast. He deceives those who live on earth because the signs that he is permitted to perform on behalf of the beast, telling those who live on earth to make an image of the beast who had the sword wound yet lived. He was, okay, this is crazy. He was permitted to give spirit to the image of the beast so that the image of the beast could both speak and cause whoever would worship the image of the beast to be killed. This is what we're talking about in the podcast. Where do you get spirit from? So the land beast is permitted to give the beast from the sea spirit to make to the image of the beast, so the image of the beast would speak. This is the idea of sort of coming alive. Here's wisdom, and this is where it looks like a man. Understanding, calculate the number of the beast because it's the number of a man. His number is 666. If you go to Irenaeus, I did a whole podcast on this. But if you go to Irenaeus, he links this 666 to Titan, which would be, again, divine human. The idea of this divine human hybrid. So the beast is just called forth by, I don't know, I'm missing something here. It's this dragon, right? The beast comes up from the sea. The beast comes up from the ground. That's interesting, too, that it's the ground beast, because Adam comes from the earth. Adam, the man, comes from the earth. Thanks for hanging in there with me as I just sort of sort through this out loud. The ocean, the beast from the sea, and the beast from the land. But it's just John telling us, when the dragon saw that he had been thrown to earth, he persecuted the woman, gave birth to the male child. The woman was given 2 wings, the great eagle, so that she could fly away from the serpent's presence. From his mouth, the serpent spewed water like a river. So he reenacts some of the miracles of Yahweh. So the dragon was furious with the woman and left to wage war against the rest of her offspring, those who keep God's commands and have testimony about Jesus. This is where I get the idea that it comes from the dragon. He stood on the sand of the sea. Okay, so that's the end of Revelation 12 is this dragon standing on the sand of the sea. The next 2 things that happen is in Revelation 12, the beast comes from the sea and the beast comes from the land. And so you get this idea that it's this dragon, but he stood. This is anthropomorphic language. He stood. Okay, dragons, how do dragons stand? It's like he takes the form of a man so he can stand. I'll look up Revelation 11, 1 through 10 as well. I need to piece through this, man. I mean, it's stuck in my crawl a little bit. I'll look at this. So anyway, I'm going to go through Heiser's Revelation study this summer, but it's just, the question for me is, John is not necessarily telling us, he's telling us that these beasts come from the sea and the land, but they appear. How do they appear? And can we, and I hope you guys can help me, can we rule out that humanity creates these, that this is what God was saying in Genesis 11, that after building the Tower of Babel, what else might they create? I don't know. I have also thought that these beasts are tied to Genesis 4. Cain, the beast that's crouching at your door. So this beast is sort of a sense, a manifestation of sin, manifestation of human rebellion. I don't know, man. All right. Well, I want to bring Christian in if Christian's hanging out. Oh, I missed a call from Christian. Maybe he's not available. If you're hanging out in the chat, let me know. Because this spirit, give spirit to the image of the beast. That was the question I left off in this podcast. Where do you get spirit from? Heiser goes through this recreation of these idols. Now, and what you would do is you would do these rituals so that the idols would receive spirit. They would open the mouth, and spirit and breath are connected. Now, the piece to this that needs to be sort of unpacked is if you go back to Socrates and the three parts of the soul, mind, body, spirit. Spirit is uniquely tied to music, it seems. I'll call you here in a second, Christian. Sorry, there is a little bit of a delay on my stream. I apologize for that. Spirit seems to be uniquely connected to music. Music seems to have three parts to it, just like the soul has three parts. But spirit has this, music has this way of moving you, and that would be tied to this sort of spirited part of what it means to be human. You could connect courage to spirit. You could connect that idea of, sort of, not to like, waging war or whatever, but that would be the idea, this spirit. Or you could think of like school spirit, to lean on Paul Vanderklay here for a second. Two teams compete with each other, and what do? They've got a pep band, right? They have a pep band to get you going, to get you moving, to get sort of to unite this sort of team spirit. And so I posted this on Twitter, and I thought this was really great by Drew. It seems to be coming up, the question of music and the spirit. And Christian, I would like to get, did you watch this? Let me see what's going to happen. So I've never tried this before, but I can't use OBS, or in order to use OBS to live stream, can I get a little, can I get a mic check from you?
Yeah, hold on.
Okay. I hear you, but I don't know if the people hear you. Am I in streamer mode? Streamer mode is enabled. Great. Let's see how this is going to work.
1, 2.
Oh, I could actually pop it out. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Try again. And if anybody's in the chat, let me know if you can hear Christian.
Check 1, 2.
Okay. I heard you. You're a little quiet, but I can turn you up. And you're sideways.
I didn't know if that would help or not, but
no, it's fine. We'll just be off, okay, guys. If you're watching this, I'll just be in this weird, frame over here. Christian will be over there. You can hear both. Okay, if I need to turn Christian up more, let me know.
What's up, guys?
Yo, hey, dude, thank you for coming in. Thank you for hanging out. Okay, and I'm sorry, I can't do StreamYard. I mean, I guess I could set it up with StreamYard, but I just set it up with OBS, and so the only way I could do this was with Discord. So let me see though. Okay. Here's gonna be the problem, because I actually want to play this clip. Did you watch this? Hold on. I think I can. Hang in there, everybody. Okay, I'm gonna pop Christian out. Okay. Let's see. We can do this. Okay, there's a way I can do this. On the fly. Do I add? Okay, give me a second. Did you watch this? I'm showing it on my screen right now. This is why you'll never hear the voice like Judy Garland's again. Didn't we talk about this on Twitter? Or, excuse me, the platform formerly known as Twitter?
We did talk about the the Judy Garland thing a little bit.
Okay. I thought this was fascinating because what he's basically saying is we are creating sort of mechanized voices, right? That's the idea. Let me see if. And so, okay, window capture. What's your take on this? Because you are a musician. Ah, there you are. Okay, I did it. Dang. Okay, we're on the fly here, though. Let's see if I
All right.
move that out. Okay, great. Now I can't see chat, so if anybody's chatting, I'm sorry. And then I'll move. Then I'll move Christian. Let's see. Here's what we're gonna do. Okay, hang in there, guys. We're learning on the fly here. Oh, we lost him. Dang it. Okay, I'm gonna get this window capture
Still here.
back. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Window capture. I already add existing because I already have you. Boom, there you are. And then we're gonna. Okay. See, now we'll be kind of like the same. We'll be like. Okay. Maybe this makes more sense. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe we're just doing it around. We're playing, actually, is what we're doing. Okay. Give me a little chat again. I want to make sure I didn't.
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm
you're
hanging.
chilling.
I'm here.
You're just hanging out, letting me do my thing, let me
Yep.
figure out my life. I love it. Thank you, man, for being here. Okay. So what he does is he runs Judy's voice. Oh my gosh. Now I get an ad, of course. Ugh. Okay. He runs Judy's voice through this software, and it's all over the place, right? It's
run it through this.
It's not perfect. It's not like
vocal. This has been recorded by.
Sorry, guys. It's not like pitch perfect, right? So he's saying that what we're hearing, what we're hearing mostly is people's voices being edited so that they hit the notes more evenly right here. Okay, you can see that. Like that's just been digitally enhanced. You don't hit notes like that. You don't hit notes perfect like that. You hit notes more like what Judy Garland is doing. She's all over the place, right? However, when you're hearing Judy Garland, you're like, that's great. It's beautiful. That's a beautiful voice. You're not thinking, oh, she's all over the map, man. Why can't this girl just hit the freaking note? And my thought with that was, well, there's a human voice and there are human ears, and we almost like we're tuning to each other, if that makes sense. As I hear Judy, I kind of tune my listening ear to her voice, and even though it's not technically perfectly hitting that note, it still kind of sounds like it is. And so there's this interplay between the singer and the listener, almost like a dialogue, almost like we're interacting with each other. If you remove that and you just digitally correct that, you've sort of removed. See, again, now we're back to spirit. Spirit is breath. You've removed that human sort of element. You've removed the human spirit. And so I don't know where to go with that, but you're a musician and I'm not necessarily a musician. So I just was curious to get any of your thoughts on that as we talk about the possibility of building an antichrist. So in the context of that.
Well, I think for me, it really goes back to church music and my experience with it.
Mm-hmm.
Let me know if the audio is doing okay for you.
So far, so good on
And talking about things you hit on here a lot that we hit on in some of this quarter of the internet is things like the mechanistic thing, the antichrist thing that you're talking about. I got to this place where I wanted everything to be mechanical.
Right.
I wanted to follow the metronome for everything.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted the pitch to be as perfect as possible. I didn't want there to be a lot of humanity in the music, actually. That's something that I've been trying to understand a lot more recently. Is I had about a 7-year break from leading worship in churches, and I'm with a very, very small community of people worshiping on Sunday, and and one of the things that I got to this place where I'm using in-ear monitors,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't even really hear people singing. I'm just focused on the music that we're playing, and there's something to artistically crafting and honing skill. Like I that's a reality. But I think that there's a different place for that when it comes to corporate worship. But the two have become so intermingled, especially in the modern evangelical uh, kind of reach movement, fill the building movement uh, with high level production being the main thing, and that's bled into Vatican II. It's bled into regular Protestant churches trying to get people to church using this part of music, and it's a very dehumanizing process to try to reach for that perfection, that mechanistic perfection. And even in some of these conversations about Plato and Augustine's kind of use of him with this transcendental, almost like these perfected forms, I think there's something really true in our culture that is grounded in that, when it comes to specifically what we're trying to do with worship in a lot of the modern church contexts. So I don't know if that's any or all of the stuff you want to talk about. I could kind of keep going on that, but that's kind of what that, as I was listening to you cover that, and we talked about it over on my channel, a week or two ago, briefly.
That's right. It was that live stream. Yeah.
So
I actually think there's something to that. And it goes back to actually, this idea of purgatory or sanctification, which I think there's a mashup there for me as a sort of reformed, Christian, that I have to acknowledge. Dante was onto something there. If you don't believe in purgatory, you're in it. So get used to it.
That's Lewis and just this digital nature of discussing the ideas of the church.
Yeah.
Unbound by walls is changing all that.
It's great. I think that so what I would say is there's a perfecting nature to the craft. And if you're and so we have this sort of like, oh, we need to attend to that which is true and good and beautiful. We're sort of like aiming for this perfection. I think maybe perfection is the wrong aim, but perfecting is a better aim. It's like this acknowledgement that we are being transformed. We're not there yet. We want our craft to glorify God and maybe to the point of maybe being more attractional. It's like in that sense, our music becomes more influenced by whatever the trend, whatever's normative for the culture. And so people come to church and they feel comfortable. They feel like, okay, this, the music is sort of familiar. But then you see,
I would just,
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I would say, in my conversations with Jordan Hall and talking about those transcendentals, I think that I was approaching it in much of how we in the West have been approaching even like theology or doctrine or faith as from a truth first perspective. I was approaching music from a truth first, not just in the content, but how I wanted it to operate true. But
right.
There's a beauty to things that aren't like Julie Garland's voice. That's not, the note isn't just a true note to the frequency, but there's a beauty to her voice that is something that we recognize or that we shared in as a culture that isn't based off of the trueness of it in a way. And so that's something that I've been reflecting on a lot. And I dealt with it a lot when I was a part of a band that wanted everything to be perfect, like out on the road. These people, one of them is still a professional musician. And that was our aim, this kind of craft. But then when I would come into the church and I would want that to be executed that way, I would always bump up into the relational community, family, body thing that wasn't where and I would have to change my priorities, even though over time I did want us to not just like, you don't just want to statically exist and just be mediocre because
Right.
it's just about the beautiful heart.
Right.
Like that's not, but I had to come at it from I would say something more like beauty first approach. Just even though I would even have looked at trying to do something true as this is what beauty is.
Right.
So that's how I've been evaluating.
Isn't it just like God though to not use that which is beautiful, but use that which is not beautiful and transform it into something beautiful? This was, I guess it was my conversation with Luke, and we were talking about the Silmarillion and how Tolkien envisions the creation of Middle Earth and how Melkor sings this dissonant song, and yet, and forgive me, Tolkien experts here, I don't remember the name of the high up god, whatever. I think there's a Y in it, but it's uses that, uses the discord of Melkor and reforms the song into something that it wouldn't have been if not for that discord, but is actually now more beautiful having had that sort of sewn in it, and so I think about. So one of the things that we do in our church, and I was listening to your video today, just about liturgy and just the desire for, even what you're talking about, something that is almost more real or more solid, or like the guy we were talking to was talking about like a higher level of teaching and stuff like that. Like you don't want it to be watered down for the purpose of being sort of attainable by, this whole, whatever, culture or whatever. And one of the things that we do is, there's two things that I think are actually really important that have surfaced recently. One is we do corporate confession. I think modeling that is huge for a community that thinks perfection is the goal, right? That, and you can even see this in sort of the humanistic elements of like wokeism or whatever. There's no redemption. It's like once you fail, you're out. We model forgiveness, we model repentance, and then the other thing we do is at the end of service we sing the doxology a cappella. So at the end of service, it's just the voices. Our worship leader sort of strums a note so we can all kind of hear that note ringing in the room, and then it's like, boom, we're all singing, and just that one little moment of there's no instruments, there's no tech, it's just human voices, and it's a body singing as one. I think that is important, hearing the human voice and being sensitive to the human spirit, and even recognizing that's imperfect. Oh, that imperfect thing, that's a very human quality, because when the machines come and try to convince us of what the human spirit is like, you'll go, no, wait, actually, that doesn't sound anything like the human spirit. That doesn't look anything like the human spirit. I know, because I exist in a body of people, and we sing together. And so we are routinely calibrating our ears, our whatever, our perception to that which is human, even if that which is human is not perfect. So when the robots start singing, we're like, hey, that's not actually good.
Yeah, we are. I mean, when you can digitally, there's a a company called Waves that a lot of
Right.
larger churches buy into. You can auto tune everyone's voice and and do so much to where that what's coming through has a certain pleasing popular nature to it.
Hmm.
And if that's your aim, again, a lot of it has to do with your telos for worship,
Yeah.
and a lot of things there's not a lot of actual thought going into it pastorally.
Hmm.
um, in those settings, the idea is evangelism. The idea is reach, and when that is your telos, then you are defined by how you can reach the most
Yeah.
people. And that's all very connected for me from that time in that world.
Yeah.
Um, and I was having this conversation with my daughter. I've got a 14-year-old. I've got a 10-year-old. They both love Taylor Swift. I like Taylor Swift. And as I was talking to them, I was trying to uh, help them and myself understand what she has actually done culturally.
Hmm.
And it's actually extremely incredible if you look at it from this way. What makes her different from Katy Perry, from who's Hannah Montana,
Yeah, you got me.
Miley Cyrus?
Miley Cyrus.
Miley Cyrus. What makes her different than Justin Bieber? What makes her more like Ed Sheeran? And why are they friends? And why are they still successful? And why are the other ones have a different cycle on their career and a different? It's because Taylor Swift is at her core a songwriter, and so is Ed Sheeran. And so what they have done is they're not just an object for a corporation to just put up
Right.
and
Right.
and give you this beautiful, perfect pop thing. They are bringing like a human part of themselves is what's actually carrying the course of their career. And I think that it has actually made a hugely significant difference in their outcomes as artists and musicians in our culture. Is because at their heart they're actually both writers, and they stay true to that. Of course, they have all sorts of interests and popularity things that are related to it, but that is a much more authentic place to build something off of, as opposed to the other people are more performers. I mean, Miley Cyrus is in there, but she kind of got lost in the performance side of it. And so that, I think, connects as well as to stuff like this. I mean, and Taylor Swift isn't known for being a great singer. She's not known for being the best dancer or the most sexy whatever. Like, and she actually is a songwriter.
Yeah. Okay.
So
I'd like to hear if anybody in chat has a question, or if anybody in chat wants to tell me what is Taylor Swift known for. Let me know. I need education here when it comes to Taylor Swift. But I think that point though is interesting because, again, going back to this idea that, and I'm sorry, my face is in there twice, which is disorienting for me. But over here, this 3 parts of the soul. You know what? I probably have this picture somewhere, and I could just pop it up. Do we have questions? What? You're pointing. Oh, you're pointing.
Pointing at your picture down there.
Got it. Sorry. And now I'm more disoriented. It's this idea that, music, kind of, again, like the soul has these 3 parts, and the lyrical aspect would be that noetic aspect, the mind. So you're putting, and that would be connected to, in a way, although that all kind of is interconnected. There's not like this, it's a unity. It's not this, separation of the parts. There's the logos there. There is a logic to follow. There's a story to follow. Lyrically, there are these elements that exist, and you're able to sort of portray something lyrically that is unique, right? To like, let's say a Taylor Swift or something like that. Interesting. Whereas like the performer is just that's just a, hold on, I'm going to break my live stream here if I keep messing with stuff, is just sort of the body. They're just
a vessel.
Okay. Woo, there,
Vessel.
I did it. I found it, guys. I did it. Yeah, they're just a vessel. So the noetic, I don't know, this is just a meme, but I think it's funny. It is there's lyrics, and this is where I was trying to get some feedback there on the platform formerly known as X, is what do you think about the connection between music and the soul? What it means to be human. Music and the soul each have 3 parts, correlates to the edge. And I don't know this but like mind, body, spirit. And then maybe I don't know enough about music to know that these are the right things, but rhythm, harmony, and melody. But I always think of like lyrics, maybe melody is lyrics, or I don't know. But spirit would be, or rhythm would be kind of the spirit. I don't know. There's something there that I'm sort of grasping at that I don't quite have, but lyrics are a part of that. And even if the song doesn't have actual words that you're singing, the notes sometimes have this interplay with each other. There's these sort of phrases that appear and reappear throughout a song. And so even the notes kind of create this or form this dialogue in a way. And I do think, I don't know, I think there's something, I guess my encouragement, for anybody would be, lean into those things that make us human, in a good way, right? Like I don't want to be deceived, and I don't want to lose this sort of human spirit, this sensitivity to the human spirit. In a world of AI, and sort of things that are masquerading as human or divine or both, I don't want to lose the sensitivity to the human spirit or that which makes us human, and be deceived or be dislocated or even deceive others, And so this thread was really interesting from Drew, but even like the fact that we record music and we sort of listen to it through machines there's something, we sort of lose something in that. And that's why you need to come to the Rabbit Room, man. And we need to watch a show at the Rabbit Room and do some in-person music appreciation.
Well, I've told you my sister lives out in that neck of the woods.
I know, so
hopefully maybe have a trip this summer and
that'd be sweet.
Give you a buzz. But yeah, sweet. The thing you're hitting on there, my wife and I were a part of a worship night music video recording a few months back, and the guy who was producing it and putting it on, the worship leader at this church, he made this point that the biggest part, the most important part of the live production is to capture the voices of the people for the recording. He said that's really what makes this what it is. We can go back and like fix parts on the lead parts or whatever. He was like, but we have to capture these voices.
Yeah.
That's he said, and even just, he was like, listen to this song without the voices. And we were kind of giving a little bit of an objective critique to how it actually didn't sound like a very good song. It was his song. So, but he was saying like, this is really made by this kind of corporate reality that we're trying to capture in this project. So,
well, and what do you think about this? I mean, there's something to this, because Jordan Peterson hits Russel Brand with this thing that he says, look, you're basically doing, and you gave me the Chris Williamson link, so I appreciate that. And actually, you got a shout out on this podcast. I don't know if you got to that point, but I gave you the shout out. It's probably around the last third or so, but Jordan Peterson in this interview with Russel Brand says, you're kind of doing what all these other podcasters are doing. You're like suddenly Christian curious. What's up? He's like, what the hell's up with that? Like your whole spiritual quest has gone just completely Christian. Like, what's up with you, man? And Russel Brand is just like, yeah, like it did. And so what you just said about incorporating the human voices. Okay, if I'm going to capture music, the most important thing that I do if I'm capturing music is make sure that I capture the human voices. What are we doing in dialogue? We're sharing voice. We're sharing breath. And that is how we know we're interacting with another human being. And if you connect it all the way back to Michael Heiser and this question of idolatry, is the idol only becomes useful, or only becomes it's useful as a vessel so that the spirit would inhabit it. Okay, so I know that I made the thing out of clay because it's a thing of clay. And so the ancient people understood the importance of spirit. I feel like we're in the inverse part where it's like we don't really know what we're making. And
what's interesting is that it's captured digitally, and then but even in these headphones or the speakers that you're using, you are actually getting the sound waves. And as you increase the quality of the sound, which we had kind of had a conversation about, excellence or quality, but to use Joe Rogan as the analog avatar, whatever, the quality was there, and he even likes using headphones even in room conversation,
right?
Because it's this amplification of the voice. You're getting like an extra dose of that quality and that nature of the human voice, and then we were all doing that with them, sitting around the campfire, listening to the elders talk, and now, here we are, even in how we're doing this right now. It's not, perfect setup or system in that way exactly, but it's close.
It's sort of mimicked, right? There's a seed that was planted. It's now sort of, bearing fruit, or it's spreading. That's the thing. That's the point. Is there's and I guess this is where I thought Paul Vanderklay. I thought this stuff from John Vervaeke was just. And when you hear John Vervaeke, basically, he says it in such a John Vervaeke way. He's like, the theological axis of the spiritual somatic is typified in the incarnation of Christ, and it's like, I think he just said we need Jesus. I think what he said is we need actual Jesus, like the true God, true man, embodied, and but it's the spirit somas, the spirit and the body idea that triggered me. And so, when Paul goes off on his thing and he says, this race between the collective we, or the collective us, and the machines is underway. What's happening is you have this podcast thing breaking out, and you've got Chris Williamson going to church, and you've got Russel Brand being baptized, and you've got lots of people suspicious that Joe Rogan is not okay. We don't have to say that we're suspicious of Joe Rogan. Sorry, Russell, I got you on a weird clip there. We're not suspicious that Joe Rogan has softened his take on Christianity. We know he's softened his take on Christianity. He's basically come out and said that. But Jordan Peterson, did you catch that Pints with Aquinas clip?
Yeah.
Jordan Peterson lets this thing slip in his interview with Pints with Aquinas. He's like,
he said Rogan's figured it out.
They've listed off all these people who, through podcasting, through public speaking, through the public sharing of voice and breath, of dialogue, so that would be the logos, right? There's this conversion happening. So is there something in dialogue, like music, that sort of has a gravity towards the person of Christ, you know. And it's like
the journey between, you mentioned John Vervaeke, Jordan Hall and John Vervaeke, that was a very delicate, their first conversation after Jordan's Hall's conversion was delicate because of their relationship and their friendship related to John not being a confessing or believing Christian. But even in like that, what you were just, I don't know if that was the clip that Paul shared today from the Roy Clauser thing that you're talking about. I don't know if that's what you were talking about exactly. But
the Paul clip is from a while ago.
Okay, well, it is going to be interesting to watch his journey. The Russel Brand one, I had a feeling this was going to happen for a long time, because even when he kind of came out of his comedic intensity through the anonymous work, like SA and AA, and he was very pluralistic for a long time, but he was so, he's had Jesus tattooed on his arm for years, and just I kind of felt it was going to head this way for a long time, but there is a profundity to the actual act of the spiritual faith of the exclusive nature of a Christian baptism. That's intense.
Well, and I was just going to ask, why isn't there this sort of mass, and I don't want to throw like comparative religions out there and stuff like that. I'm not trying to be harsh to any other religions or judgmental or anything like that. I'm just like, and is it like, oh, I'm thinking of buying a, Toyota Tundra, so I see Toyota Tundras everywhere. Oh, I'm a Christian, so I see people converting to Christianity everywhere, but I just don't see people converting to anything else.
Now there's a large the political stuff happening between Israel and Islam, or however you would. There's a lot of young people, and also Andrew Tate has converted to Islam, and there's a lot of publicly calling Christianity the religion for weak people or whatever. Which, but but there's a lot of, there was like a big mass college prayers, like Islamic prayer session during some of these protests that are happening. So
that's an interesting one. Yeah, I have thoughts about that maybe would go to a truly strange. As we get closer and closer to the election, of course, we're going to have to talk more and more about how politics is downstream of theology, I think, ultimately.
Well, these high profile people that you're picking on is different than, and this may be your point, than 1,000 college students on a college campus. These people are influencers of millions of people.
Right.
And even though you could look at you could watch on the news this, and of course Andrew Tate's a very influential person in online spaces too, but it seems to me, this is the conclusion I came to back 10, 15 years ago, about when I was watching people become atheists, right, that what they were signing up for was something that they thought was powerful and domineering. That I could be right and these things. That wasn't something that interested me, even if I thought the arguments were compelling, because it was just like an invitation to be, we'll just say, mean.
Right, mean with no moral objectivity to say otherwise,
Yeah, and that wasn't it. That was either scary or just uninteresting or off-putting to me from that standpoint.
Yeah, it almost seems like an ideological conversion more than anything. But again, I'm not objective. I am a Christian person, and so of course I think Christian conversion is genuine, or whatever. But
this just dropped.
Oh gosh,
I don't know if I could get this on here, but it's Christian
Revival.
This has Alex O'Connor and Elizabeth Oldfield and Justin Brierley on the Unheard podcast. and I'm about halfway through it. And Alex O'Connor, who's not a Christian, who is in the podcast space, having
Mm-hmm.
all sorts of cross-platform
Mm-hmm.
or cross-faith conversations. He said some very profound, interesting points about atheism and Christianity that kind of blew my mind. I just listened to. I encourage you to check it out later.
Yeah.
Everybody
Yeah.
watching this.
I've been kind of somewhat interested in Alex O'Connor when I hear him, and again as a sort of an interlocutor, as a person who's a part of this dialogue. It's nice to hear someone who, at least, I like skeptics. I like people who are like genuine skeptics, but I don't like I'm often sort of frustrated easily by ideologues, and so when he sat down with Richard Dawkins, you could hear like an honest skepticism from Alex O'Connor. And then what I pick up, and I've just listened to Dawkins enough, I guess, and maybe this is, I have a bad judgment on him or whatever, and I need to be willing to let him change, and I think he will actually. Is that he's just so ideological? It's just like this, nope, that, this, and it's like you never see him just kind of sit back and go, oh, that's interesting.
In this, Elizabeth Oldfield talks about, her and Alex in this, they talk about Anya Hirsi Ali's conversion, and that she recently had a big sit down with Richard Dawkins,
right? And
it's not, I don't think it's been released yet. I think it was a private event type thing, and it'll probably be out soon. But she gets through this very impassioned, or I don't know if impassioned, very vulnerable explanation of how I'm choosing to believe these things and how it's affecting my life. And then Dawkins says, and it's this very intense and vulnerable and honest thing. And his first response was, yeah, but so you're saying you believe in the virgin birth? Like that was his, and apparently it was just completely, and Alex actually made the point on this, how inappropriate it all seemed.
Right.
And how that's just a huge cultural tide change from the experience I was talking about 10 or so years ago.
Yeah. And I think Ayaan Hirsi Ali and Richard Dawkins have some kind of a relationship, friendship, or at least they've sort of worked together, I believe. And so that's what's so funny about this is, oh man, this it was the Sean McDowell, Adam Curry piece to this. Oh my gosh, my face. We're going to figure this part out. We're going to figure this live stream situation out because I want to have more people on for the live stream. But right now I'm just scrubbing through my previous podcast. And so, anyway, Adam, in his appearance on Joe Rogan, which was a while ago, which is really interesting to think about. Adam was a regular on Joe Rogan, and then he comes on Joe Rogan and basically says, "Hey, I've become a Christian. You really got to check out this Jesus stuff." And he hasn't been on since that episode dropped. So since he told Joe Rogan he became a Christian, he hasn't been on. So I don't know about that. So we're gonna watch and learn. But what he said was, it was the people that were brought into my life that made a difference to me, because they just lived consistently with this, what they preached, basically. And when you think about it, it's so funny that like Richard Dawkins would not debate John Lennox or William Lane Craig right now. He just wouldn't. He couldn't do it. And I'm not saying he debated Ayaan Hirsi Ali. It seems like they sat down and had a dialogue. But he's willing to do that. Why? Because she's newly converted to Christianity. So she's really vulnerable right now, right? So she isn't, and that's what Joe and Adam were talking about. Like, Adam starts to talk to him about, like, wow, I really looked into this Jesus stuff. And Joe starts to press him on it. And it's like, yeah, I mean, I'm still looking into it. I'm still looking into this Jesus thing. So I don't have all the answers for you. So it seems like just the obvious thing, again, not to reinforce my, as a Christian person, like I pray for these people. Like I pray for Richard Dawkins. Like I have no ill will towards the man. I just have a hard time listening to him because it doesn't sound like a person who listens very well. Like, so he wants to talk to Ayaan Hirsi Ali because he can maintain whatever points make him feel comfortable, whereas somebody like John Lennox would just not allow him to do that. He would just be like, Richard, you're not really thinking through this, He would probably point out some miracle of evolution that's like, okay, you want to challenge, the idea that the virgin birth couldn't possibly happen, and yet you want to claim that life arose from non-life. So Richard would be like, hey, I think it's really hard to believe that this one person was born of a virgin, that this one life came into existence seemingly spontaneously. You're not willing to grant that miracle, but you are willing to grant that all of life came spontaneously? That doesn't seem to be like a miracle to you, Mr. Dawkins? Something like that. It would go something like that. I don't know.
Did you see their debate that they had?
The Dawkins, John Lennox? Oh, yeah. It's
okay, yeah. It's been a long, like 2006 or
yeah, it was a while ago, but it's brilliant. I love John Lennox. John Lennox is such a charming man. I really hope that he makes it on Joe Rogan. I don't think
he would.
William Lane Craig would be a good fit. I know there's a few people in that sort of evangelical Christian camp who really want William Lane Craig on Joe Rogan. William Lane Craig debates people. Joe Rogan has conversations. It's not a good fit, guys. Let it go. But John Lennox, that would be brilliant.
Because when I was listening to so much of that, both my grandfathers died when I was like 3 and 4. And I got such this like, I was listening to his voice so much during that time, kind of was embodying this grandfather kind of spirit during that time. John Lennox.
He is. I mean, and there's something about that, right? That takes us back to the whole conversation about human spirit, and I wonder, again, back to I think podcasting or whatever this is some kind of gift. It's like
conversation craft, man.
It's conversation craft. Hey, 3-hour conversations changed the world, man. I gave you that shout out. That was what I said. I said, my friend Christian Baxter says that 3-hour conversations changed the world. And I think he's right. And so when you have, so the crazy thing about this clip here from Sean McDowell and Adam Curry is that Adam basically says God inspired podcasting. He says, I finally understood it. He said, when I became a Christian, because Adam Curry essentially invented podcasting, but he was not a Christian when it happened. He said, when I became a Christian, I finally understood why all those guys at the Emmys or, no, it was actually music, so it ties to music, at the Grammys or whatever. All these, music artists, when they get up to get their awards, they say, oh man, all glory to God, all glory to my creator, God inspired these lyrics and stuff like that. And he goes, I didn't invent podcasting. It's like, so you're telling me God invented podcasting? All credit to God for inspiring the idea of podcasting? Maybe he's on to something, because now all these people are finding Jesus. We'll see.
The word in the beginning.
I mean, there's something to that. In the world was created by the word of God, so that which is seen is not made out of that which is visible.
And the word isn't just letters on a page.
The word becomes flesh. And what do we do as a church? We embody the word.
Hey, embody.
So we are like Christ in that way. We're a little Christ. That's what Christian is. And there you go.
Oh.
That's yeah, you're like this little Christ. What a perfect. See, we planned it out this way, of course.
Oh
That's why I
man,
invited
I had
Christian
a
on.
I had a eighth grade teacher say, "Whew, that's a tough name to live up to." I was kind of a troublemaker at that point in my life. I,
Yeah.
I was a troublemaker for a long time, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
Man.
imagine having to go through your life with that name.
With the name
Kind
Christian.
of,
Have you ever gone by your middle name?
no,
Huh.
no,
Okay,
it's
I'm gonna.
Lee.
Okay. Sorry, guys.
So it makes it an adverb. It actually makes my name an adverb.
Christian Lee. Christian Lee. Okay. So if you're watching the live stream, let me know what you think of this conversation. If we've inspired you, if we've frustrated you, I'm gonna do something here because I do want to use Discord in the future, but I'm just gonna do this little edit here live. I need to that kind of works. It's still a little wonky that I'm like in vertical format and you're in horizontal, but I'm gonna figure this out. Oh, right, that's why you were flipping your, because you could. Well, we'll figure it out. I'll set up a screen for this so that we can do this more. But it seems like audio is coming through fine, video is coming through okay. What I'll probably do is I'll just build another scene in OBS, specifically for Discord. But man, I feel like there's, I feel like this conversation will be ongoing, and I don't want to sound like a crazy conspiracy theorist, but but it's not even me. It's C.S. Lewis got here before us, right? Like he predicted this, that they would be creating this human spirit mechanical hybrid. And he wrote it into a work of fiction. But now, doesn't it seem like all these stories are coming true? Doesn't it seem like magic has reemerged? Like all the dystopian novels are coming true.
Science fiction's not that interesting anymore.
Right. Oh man. Well, cool, dude. I mean, if anybody in chat's got questions, I'm down to hang out, down to chill. I'm gonna be up working on OBS anyway after this because this was a nice little experiment. Maybe we could, and I don't know. A lot of people use StreamYard. I let my StreamYard account lapse because it doesn't work with my setup quite the way I want it to right now. But that's just me.
Yeah, man. Are you still able to hear okay?
Yeah.
The science fiction is not interesting anymore because so much of it is happening. But I think it's something too. When you're talking about this melding of machine and man, you go back to Tolkien's disdain for the mechanistic. You're talking about Lewis. Which book are you referencing when you're talking?
I'm referencing That Hideous Strength. Okay.
Yeah, so, my point being, even back to the conversation about church music, is and versus something as simple as podcasting, which really is just people, for the most part, people talking. But I had this weird mix of melding of man and machine to the metronome, like being tied to the metronome, and there's a mechanical voice telling you what's next, and there's and that is it's kind of transhuman in its nature, and I've experienced that, and this whole infatuation from a lot of people in tech with the old Orthodox church is because they're trying to escape this thing that dominates their life, and that seems to be the least connected to, or the most human. I think it's not just a propositional agreement. And so I think that those things are all tied together.
Did you catch this climbing Mount Sophia episode.
The zombie
Really,
one?
really interesting. Yeah, what did they call? Oh shoot, this is on my own. Yeah, it was the one that they had on AI. It was like on horror, the AI.
Yeah. Mm.
Really interesting because Peugeot is basically saying like, well, it's almost like the human consciousness can predict the future because these things that we're seeing today have emerged. They emerged a long time ago in these works of art. The golem, that's what you're talking about. That's the machine that becomes too powerful that then humanity wants to try to flee the machine and get away from the machine. And so you have these people who work in this highly technical field fleeing that machine for something very analog, very human, very earthy, very liturgical, grounded. Yeah, like they're fleeing from that. And then the Frankenstein. The Frankenstein is the other one. And he asked the question, and I'd be interested to hear what other people think. He asked the question of like, what other stories are out there that would be sort of prophetic in that same way. And so, of course, I think of Lewis's That Hideous Strength. It really is, in a way, he's sort of working out the sort of medieval and biblical cosmology, but he shows us the implications working out in a modern world that has disregarded that cosmology. So instead of acknowledging the spirits like the ancient pagans would have when they created an idol, they knew they were engaging with spirits. They knew they made the thing out of clay and that they needed to invite the spirit in for it to be useful for anything. The modern man doesn't know that the spirits exist. And these scientists call them macrobes. So the microbes are the small organisms and the macrobes are the big organisms. And he's referring to spirits. He's referring to angels in a sense, or angels and demons or whatever. And so have you read the book? I mean, hopefully this isn't a total spoiler for anybody, but oh my gosh, get to the end of that book. It is brutal. It's this whole story, and they actually talked about this a little bit in the Climbing Mount, or the Climbing Mount Sophia podcast, about how horror is that which disorients you from reality. It's you with no home, homeless, wandering in sort of a dark wood type of thing. And there's this scene in That Hideous Strength where he goes into this room, and the room has all these strange paintings where it's like so unnatural and so weird. Like there's a person who, maybe I'm getting this wrong, but like they're looking up and their mouth is open, and out of their mouth is just growing all this hair and stuff like that. It's just like really distorted pictures of reality. And it's like this cleansing. They say this is sort of like the cleansing of your consciousness before you go in to meet these macrobes. You have to be dislocated. You have to sort of have this encounter with horror first. And then what they do is you go into this room and there's this disembodied head. So that's Lewis working out his men without chests idea. There's this disembodied head. It's hooked up to all these like pumps and hoses and electricity and all this stuff. And there's like tubes to make the mouth have saliva in it, and there's gears that make the mouth move. But it's the spirit. There's a spirit that inhabits that head that then gives it voice, that gives it sort of this breath. And that, I think, is fairly prophetic. And that's why when Tucker Carlson set me off on this whole thing where he's like, well, we've recreated the human body, we've recreated the human mind. It's like, oh crap, they're trying to get spirit. That's what they, that's the we versus they type of thing. But like, I don't know who they are. But it's like, and Peugeot doesn't bring it up. Maybe I'll leave a comment on this video, but he doesn't bring up That Hideous Strength. But I would think that would be something that's even as prophetic as the sort of, Frankenstein or Golem or any of those things. Yeah. So the idea of the message from God to people and back to the people, and the dragging having all the power, maybe even with AI, and yet cannot stop the message of the two witnesses. Yeah, they can't stop the message of the two witnesses. That's an interesting one. Yeah. So I'll have to look at that, because that is interesting. The two witnesses in Revelation has been a mystery. But again, like I said, I'm going to work through Heiser's book on Revelation. He did a podcast as well. That should be good. But yeah, the fact, well, how would you have two witnesses? Oh, that's so interesting. Two witnesses who are able to speak, and everybody hears them. You can't combat with their words. I don't know. There's something to that, because you see this in Acts with the early church.
The ascension. Is that about the ascension?
Well, in Revelation.
Oh no.
What I'm thinking about in Acts is the martyrdom of Stephen. It says they could not contend with his wisdom or with the spirit that was in him. And so you see that that's the idea of Revelation. There's a witness who sort of can't be overthrown. What is that? Is that Acts 7? Is that the end? It's at the end of 7. I probably should have gone to 8, because chapter 7 is a big chapter. Well, now I went too far. I scrolled too far. Anyway, it's there. It says that they could not contend with his wisdom or with the spirit. It's Acts. Help me, Jesus. Nope, I went too far. Acts. Sorry, this is maybe annoying. Anyway, feel free to chime in, chat, or Christian, as I sort of fumble through.
I've tried to connect the two witnesses to Stephen.
Well, just the idea that there's the, as you are a witness and as you sort of proclaim the gospel or whatever, that they're not able to, they cannot stop the message, is the reference from Revelation. So the two witnesses, they're able to proclaim the message. It's not able to be stopped. Filled with the Holy Spirit, gazed up into heaven.
I mean, that's what if I recall from Stephen's martyrdom, wrapping this around to these ideas of good and true and beautiful. Is there something about him being kind of glorified in that moment?
His face is like the face of an angel, yes.
Yeah, and so something's bearing witness to something, to all those things.
6:10.
And it's a man being, it's a recapitulation of a man being,
martyr, yeah.
killed for that.
Well, and that's kind of what triggered my mind onto from Revelation to Acts. Is it's a martyrdom? You see this, there are two martyrs in Revelation. Here you have Stephen being martyred. Acts 6:10. I had to go to Google to figure it out. Sorry, guys. I'm not really. This is part of being, not transformed, into the. I'm not there. So. They came forward to dispute with Stephen, but they were unable to stand up against his wisdom and the spirit by whom he was speaking. Spirit. Oh man, I'm sorry, chat. I'm in the way. But it's there, I promise. Here. I'll move it over there. I'm reading from this one. But now I missed it. Yeah. The spirit and the wisdom. Man. See, again, that's music. That's the music and dialogue, isn't it? We're kind of back there. Wisdom is I don't know.
I've had to go through a long journey to to break myself of such a truth bound reality, to be able to recognize the beauty of vanity of
Mm,
but it's and what is that? That's the image of God, from that part of uh, my wife loves theater,
mm,
and I think it has something to do with what we're talking about. This
mm,
this quality that when I say a lot of times we think of quality as something being good, but it's not. It's the quality of what that is. The
mm.
aliveness of it, of the imperfections of it, but the embodied connection. And I've always been such more of a movie guy.
Mm.
I
Yeah,
want things to be performed at a high level,
yeah,
and I mean, there's something good to the trueness of that. Um, that I think in its right place,
yeah.
in, in the place of an artistic endeavor is good. When you look at David, the sculpture, and you look at incredible architecture, like, but that can't be. That's if that is the ultimate, and that is what dominates. Uh, you lose the human.
Yeah.
You lose something. You lose something about beauty, even though you
Mm,
would say, "Oh, that's a beautiful sculpture."
mm.
I would say that sculpture is representing truth in such an incredible way. Um, but beauty to me has something to do with
Yeah.
life. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. So, because there's oh, I'm so bad. I'm like, as much as I like lean on Socrates and the Republic, I'm actually really a bad philosopher when it comes to actually remembering philosophy. Because there's like the form, right? There's something to that. Maybe I'll look it up and see if that helps the conversation whenever we have another conversation. But there's a way of looking at something that's like you look at it for its trueness, what you're talking about. There's like the formal cause. That's what I'm thinking of. There's like the formal
Mm.
cause, and then there's um, but then again, that's sort of leading you to something else beyond that thing, like the sculpture of the David is beauty is there's something to it in and of itself, but the sculpture is reflecting the person, but the person is reflecting what you know
Well, I would say that sculpture is reflecting like geometry and
mm-hmm.
symmetry and preciseness and exactness in an incredibly real way that takes you somewhere. Uh, but it's a piece of stone. It
Mm.
it it's not, it doesn't.
Right.
And I admire it because as I was trying to sit here and think about why I have always been drawn to pop music, like I have a very high appreciation for how pop, whole idea of how pop gets executed,
Mm-hmm.
because so many people, don't like the non-human aspect of it. From what we're talking about, like, oh, I like Johnny Cash, I like his voice, I like Bob Dylan. Like those are the furthest things you could get from something approximating pop in a certain way. Like
Okay.
but what is it closer to? It's closer to this relatability and suffering
Mm.
uh, and like the gravelly harshness of life. And there um and that pop is kind of an escape. And I
Mm.
mean, I've come from kind of an addictive background, so I think that there's pieces of that too. But I've always had an appreciation for something that would connect that to the David, like or to a cathedral. Um, the precision and the exactness and uh, the idealism, I guess. I don't know, but that I think you can rob. I mean, it even robs those. It robs those performers of their authentic humanity too.
Hmm.
So I think that's why you see a lot of fallout from some of that. I don't know. That's just me doing my thing, man. Thinking out loud.
Think it out loud, man. That's what we do. That's what we do. And by the way, if you're here and you don't know Christian's channel, we got to get after it here. I'm gonna put the link in the chat. I noticed that Paul Vanderklay got on some Roy Klauser after you. He had Roy on. Did you see that?
Yeah, there's a whole back channel to all that with old CW weeks, man.
Oh yeah. So I gotta go. If I want Roy on, I gotta go through CW.
It probably wouldn't hurt. He's kind of ripe. He's kind of ripe to do some of this stuff. So
yeah, maybe there's Christian's channel. You gotta check him out. Yeah, we still gotta get Christian. Call it 40 subs before PVPK. What's Paul at these days?
He's 29.4.
29.4. Okay, he's actually, yeah, he's got 6,000 more to go before he hits 30K. Christian's only got a handful to get to 500. Let's get it. Oh, and by the way, yeah, well, okay, well, I should have said thank you to Upcycle Club at the beginning of this. I typed it in the chat, but with the five gifted subs, we'll see what happens again. I think I said a little bit of what my plan is for the summer. I will probably do a lot more sort of raw, uncut stuff, just as I sort of think out loud, as I think through some stuff before posting any more, I don't know, new podcasts coming up. But Jordan Peterson is going to go on Joe Rogan in July, is what he said. So that'll be interesting. You know what'll happen? I'm gonna be in Atlanta from July 8th to July 12th. Guaranteed that's the week that Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson get together, because I will be completely unavailable. So we'll see. Man. All right. Well, I think unless anybody in the chat's got some questions, De Sola Sol Alex Luna. All right, I'm going to say the whole name there. I think I got that. No matter how bad it gets or will get, God will find a way with people, through people. I think that's huge, right? That's maybe even like a good point to like sum everything up. God is going to work in and through people. People are not perfect, but God is able to work his perfect will. That's me being a Presbyterian. His perfect will through those imperfect sort of vessels, whether it be in the dialogue sphere, whether it be in the music sphere, whether it be even when it comes. Now, I'll throw this out there. Maybe I'll throw this out there for next time. Is there even a way where we as humans, as co-creators with God, create an AI superhuman out of obedience, like in a stewardship kind of way that actually does bring glory to God and isn't the abolition of man type of self-destructive antichrist sort of AI robot human mashup? Is there a way where because a lot of people are scared of this thing and they think we need to pull the plug, but maybe This is part of us working. I mean, that's what we do. We create art. We create music.
I think it's something like a beautiful strength instead of a hideous strength.
Maybe. Okay, actually, on that point, now we're just gonna keep talking. I do think that's a good point. I do think the in and through people. I actually almost put a thumbnail on. Let me see if I got it. I didn't download it. I almost put the thumbnail for this video as something that said that hideous strength because I actually saw it the other way around. It's actually the forces that are in rebellion, those principalities that are in rebellion, whether they be human or spiritual. It's the rebellious. It's the spirits and human that are in rebellion to God, who look at the body of Christ and look at the church with as though it has that hideous strength. It's like the gates of hell cannot withstand the church, that idea. So it's like hell is looking at what God is doing through the church and going, oh my, that strength, like that hideous strength is coming at us. And we're going to get destroyed by this thing. Like we're going to get destroyed by the Spirit of God as it works through and creates this body of Christ out of the church. And the bride and the groom find unity, have unity, or that unity is created. There's some crazy like power that just some nuclear blast goes off and all the disobedience comes undone. That's what it is. I don't know. That needs some work. That idea needs some work. That idea needs some work.
It had all sorts of implications.
Yeah, well, I'm using the language that I have. It's probably imperfect. But seeing it the other way around, almost like the screw tape letters, where as you're reading the screw tape letters, you have to remember, oh, that's the bad guys. That's the bad guys talking, you know? It's like maybe that hideous strength is actually a reference not to the hideous strength of the spirits and humans in rebellion, but it's a reference to the strength of the church and what God is doing through the church. And the rebellious spirits are looking at it with a great trepidation. We'll see. Maybe TLC will be part of that beautification process of the church.
Hopefully.
Well, cool, man. I've talked at you long enough. You're gracious enough to come on. I think I told you, did I say that we would talk for maybe an hour or something like that? But here we are, 2 hours into this thing. We're close to it.
I'm good.
Right on, man. Are we set to do Friday, you think? Is it Friday that we would?
Saturday. Truly strange show.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, it is. Do you need to do it Friday?
If we could do it Friday, it would be better. Sunday is just going to be... I'm just like, I got all kinds of crazy stuff going on Sunday, but maybe I can make it happen. I need to be well rested for Sunday. I've got a...
What if we shoot for 9 instead of 10?
We could shoot for 9 instead of 10. Yeah. Check it out on Christian Baxter's channel. Link is in the chat, and I will leave a link in the description of this video after the live stream. So
the Truly Strange Show.
The Truly Strange Show will be back at you. Thank you guys for hanging out. If you're still in the chat, thanks for being here. Thank you, Christian, for carving out the time, man. Yeah, I don't know how this will go with the delay. I'm going to stop the stream. You can hang out on Discord because it's going to take me a second to close everything down. But have a great night, everybody. I'll catch you in